Ready to go.
All right, it is time to start the juniors finals here at the Pokemon World Championships in Honolulu. The crowd is hype. We're gonna have Calyrex Ice Rider Incineroar for the lead in Game 1 and Kevin Hans and Tatsuomi Shimanuki with Zamazenta Rillaboom with the spectator mode too.
I know, it's always so exciting to see just how incredible the crowd looks in the game for these World Finals. But let's go ahead and talk about the board state here, because this Incineroar is a great supporting option for the Calyrex, but is going to be a bit slower typically than the opposing Rillaboom. So you have to be very careful for fake out on both sides of the field. My big question for Kevin is he considering Trick Room in this matchup or not? Because Calyrex Ice Rider is going to be slower than both of the Pokemon on Tatsuomi's side of the field. Does seem like a great opportunity here to try and use it either this turn or next turn, as of right now, the Zamazenta does not have enough attack power to take it out in one hit.
Yeah, I think the Trick Room really does make a lot of sense, Gabby, because looking at Tatsuomi's team, Zamazenta, fastest thing out of all the Pokemon. Choice Scarf on the Chi-Yu as well. The Tornadus is also super fast. Iron Tread's an incredibly fast Pokemon that Kevin Han might be able to twist the dimensions and switch up the narrative. But for now, it will be Terra Ghost Incineroar on the first turn here. Kevin using Terra right away. Tatsuomi protecting the Zamazenta, doesn't want to take any damage. Kevin matching that energy with a protect of his own on the Ice Rider. Rillaboom goes to the fake out, but it's into the protect on Calyrex, so Kevin doesn't take any damage this turn, and now it's time for a parting shot, but it goes towards the protect, so really smart, safe play from Tatsuomi.
A lot of times when you see Terra Ghost on an Incineroar, you assume that it is there to stop fake out. Once you are a ghost type Pokemon, normal type attacks don't work. But fighting type attacks don't work either. And in the Zamazenta matchup in particular, if you can afford to use the Terastallization on your Incineroar, you essentially set up a Pokemon that cannot take damage from Zamazenta. And what's better than not taking damage? Reducing the damage it can do as well. And just as you pointed out, Joe Brown, this Incineroar knows Will-O-Wisp, and that would be such an amazing move for Kevin in this turn.
Right onto either of Tatsuomi's Pokemon here that are both physical attackers. Yes, Body Press uses the defense stat instead of your attack stat, but it would still work pretty well. Here's the double target with the Grassy Terrain boost from the Woodhammer. It's not enough to take out Calyrex Ice Rider, one of the bulkiest Pokemon in the format. Will-O-Wisp connecting onto Tatsuomi's Zamazenta, so now it is burned. It will be doing half of the damage from its attacks. Trick Room successfully going up. Now for the next 4 turns on Kevin's end with these Twisted Dimensions, the slower Pokemon will move first, and that's bad news for Tatsuomi.
It is bad news for Tatsuomi, but he does still have some plays he can make here. While the Rillaboom is at full health, there is a chance prior to any attack boost on that Calyrex that it can survive a Glacial Lance, assuming there's still a partner standing next to it to reduce the damage. So if Tatsuomi has trained his Rillaboom to survive that attack, he can fire off another Woodhammer into that Calyrex. We saw that it didn't do as much damage as one would assume thanks to the Intimidate from that Incineroar, but it's still going to put it within knockout range of another attack, which is exactly why Kevin decides to keep it safe and switch it out.
Yeah, that Calyrex will swap into Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt, one of the Pokemon that has taken competitive Pokemon by storm over the last half year, ever since it became legal through the DLC. A very offensive Pokemon. The Wide Guard from Zamazenta will be wasted since the Calyrex swapped off the field anyway. Parting shot landing into this Rillaboom, lowering its attack and special attack by 1 stage. But of course, if it goes for the Woodhammer into this resisted Raging Bolt on the other end, it's still going to be a solid defensive swap for Kevin.
It is, and it also gives him the opportunity to send that Calyrex right back out onto the field once the damage has been lowered even further. U-turn targeting down that Raging Bolt also means that Calyrex doesn't take any damage from that switch, essentially swapping spots so it could dodge the U-turn.
Right, and now Tatsuomi's going to have to reveal his 3rd Pokemon in this game. What is one of those Pokemon in the back that are all generally speedy, say, except for Raging Bolt. The other 3 are pretty fast Pokemon that would not be working quickly under Trick Room.
Exactly. And I do want to take a moment to talk about the overall positioning of Kevin in this Trick Room right now as he sends in the Iron Treads. Joe, he brought it.
Iron Treads is essentially anti-Miraidon, anti-Raging Bolt. They're both electric dragon types. You're immune to electric as a ground type, and you resist dragon as a steel type. So Tatsuomi doesn't care if it's going to be moving slower under Trick Room. He knows he's hardly going to take any damage from either Glacial Lance or a Draco Meteor.
And unfortunately for Kevin, I think he has to make a very defensive play here, either by switching out one of these Pokemon or by letting them get KO'd this turn, most likely from an attack from that Iron Treads, and then send in your Incineroar the next turn to threaten it with Intimidate, to threaten it with a Will-O-Wisp. It's a very unique Pokemon that I don't think he's encountered throughout his run here at the World Championships. So let's see how he's going to plan a strategy around the huge threat that it brings.
And you have to wonder what Tatsuomi's strategy is on which Pokemon to terrestrialize here in Game 1. As Zamazenta's had some damage mitigation from the burn, might not be as valuable. You turn into a Dragon type, and you'll be very weak to both of Kevin's Pokemon, so maybe it's up to this Iron Treads or Rillaboom later on in this Game 1 to terrestrialize and change the dynamic. It will be just to protect, though, on Kevin's end, as well as Iron Treads protecting, so if Zamazenta went for the protect, it wouldn't work. But of course, goes for a Body Press, not doing any damage.
Good information all around for these trainers. In addition, by double protecting there, Kevin ensures that he can target down attacks into that Iron Treads when it doesn't have protect available to it. A little bit strange to be double protecting throughout your own Trick Room, but I think given the Pokemon on the field, more information is better. You can see how your opponent wants to use that Iron Treads, and then you can, again, adjust to the game plan at hand.
It is two steel types on the other end facing down Kevin's Raging Bolt. So these Draco Meteors, even if they are boosted from the booster energy increasing its special attack stat, would still be resisted. Tatsuomi making a big call on this turn to swap that Iron Treads back out into the Rillaboom. High horsepower into the ground type is now resisted, so a really smart call. But the Draco connects. It hits Rillaboom, hangs on in the red. The double target does not get the KO, and now Body Press will hit into the Calyrex, bringing it a little bit lower.
There is one more turn of Trick Room remaining now, and the Rillaboom has access to Fake Out once again to flinch either of the Pokemon on Kevin's side of the field. So even though Tatsuomi's own Zamazenta fell short of doing any significant damage that turn, it is in such a prime position here. You can wide guard any attempts at Glacial Lance to deny Calyrex the Chilling Neigh boost from knocking out the Rillaboom. You can go ahead and target down another attack to either of the Pokemon on the opposing side of the field if Rillaboom opts to go for Fake Out. Tatsuomi is almost guaranteed to make it through this Trick Room relatively unharmed.
Calyrex will swap out in this position, so a little bit worried about a Fake Out going into that slot, and now that Incineroar with the Terra Ghost, it would be immune to the Fake Out if that's what Rillaboom wants to go for. But Tatsuomi had a really smart play the previous turn. Can he get another advantage here on the last turn of Trick Room? Kevin revealing Urshifu Rapid Strike, so he's shown off all four Pokemon he brought in Game 1, and smartly does not click the Fake Out. Instead, uses that momentum to U-turn out.
One strategy that has been popular in Pokemon for almost an eternity at this point is this idea that as long as you can keep switching your Pokemon in and out on the field, you can reposition, you can respond to whatever threats your opponent brings. And with the reveal of that Chi-Yu from Tatsuomi, there is so much damage potential from him on the field right now. Kevin is almost forced to target down that Pokemon with his own Urshifu, because if you leave it unchecked, it can now do super effective damage to the Incineroar and can also threaten huge damage onto the opposing Calyrex Ice Rider with a fire attack.
Right, and the Urshifu is so crucial right now for Kevin, because the Choice Scarf is allowing it to outspeed Chi-Yu on the other end, who's holding the Choice Specs item. So that would be one thing that definitely threatens Tatsuomi's Chi-Yu from trying to click and attack this turn. Kevin instead will swap out.
Raging Bolt will take the field once again, and we do get a terrestrialization from Tatsuomi. It is the Chi-Yu terrestrializing into into the Ghost type.
So 2 Ghost Terras here in game 1. A very spooky start to our juniors finals. Surging Strikes now means it is just a neutral hit, no longer super effective. So these 3 critical hits are not going to be enough to take out the Chi-Yu on this turn. Tatsuomi really playing smartly in game 1. Body press follow up into the Urshifu, not enough.
And a Dark Pulse now from that Chi-Yu into the Raging Bolt. Almost takes it out in a single hit, and that is the power of the combination of Choice Specs and the Beads of Ruin ability. It means your special attacks do so much damage. Even though Chi-Yu locked into a single target attack, this Chi-Yu, if given the opportunity to attack, could easily KO the Urshifu or this Raging Bolt. Now, Kevin does have options to get around the Chi-Yu. The Urshifu is still naturally faster, and we did see that another Surging Strikes would be enough to lock in that KO. But the Raging Bolt also has access to a priority attack in Thunderclap. So if Kevin assumes the Chi-Yu will be attacking again this turn, you can KO it first.
Incineroar swaps into the Urshifu slot. Urshifu was hit by a body press the last 2 consecutive turns. So now Kevin anticipating if body press goes into that slot, now you will be immune to it as a ghost type. Tatsuomi being on the advantage, instead of clicking a Dark Pulse yet again, will swap into the Rillaboom, resetting up the grassy terrain, helping his Zamazenta recover just a little bit of HP every single turn. But the body press goes towards Raging Bolt for the knockout. He knew that it was too risky to target the Urshifu slot and gets rewarded KOing Raging Bolt.
Even if Raging Bolt opted to Thunderclap that Zamazenta so it could attack before being knocked out, Zamazenta has so much health it wouldn't have mattered. Tatsuomi said this when we were talking to him before the game. He loves bulky Pokemon. He loves having the ability to stay on the field and take all of these hits. And even though the Zamazenta was weakened by an Intimidate, was weakened by a Burn, it is still doing enough damage thanks to the time it has to make a huge difference in his game plan.
Now this Calyrex is already down to about a third of its HP. Sure, the Incineroar has effectively full HP, but there's no Trick Room up. Your Restricted is very close to being knocked out. Losing Raging Bolt, who does so much damage on Kevin's end. It's such a difficult position here in game 1.
It is. That all being said, though, with the combination of Urshifu and Calyrex still available at this moment in time, I think Kevin has a little bit of options here. This Urshifu has the Choice Scarf, like we were talking about earlier, but it also has Coaching, which means there's a way to power up this Calyrex. One thing he could consider doing here after a turn of Fake Out and maybe even setting up Trick Room again is to try to power up this Calyrex so it can make a bigger difference in this matchup.
Rillaboom just clicking U-turn almost as if it's choice locked into it, but it's not. Consistently, Rillaboom swaps onto the field as a defensive pivot, and then he'll U-turn into something else in the back, revealing the Iron Treads yet again. It's been a while, but it looks pretty poised right now until Calyrex twists the dimensions. That means Kevin got to bring his Calyrex on the field and set Trick Room up for a second time in game 1.
It is a second time, but again, there's so much damage on the field, and I'm not sure if Kevin can match that damage from Tatsuomi. Calyrex Ice Rider did manage to twist the dimensions in its favor, which means it will be able to attack first. But like you were saying, Joe, this Iron Treads will be able to take a hit from it quite comfortably. It's most likely going to need 2 hits from High Horsepower or Glacial Lance to secure that KO. Meanwhile, Zamazenta is still free to try and wide guard if you want to stop this Calyrex from attacking, or you can continue to use those body pressures to just wear down the HP of your opponent.
Well, Kevin has protected his Calyrex Ice Rider on the turn. Knockoff goes into that protect. Tatsuomi is just making so many great decisions turn after turn in game 1. The body press will hit Calyrex's protect, so no damage really from anybody. Just a little bit of HP recovery thanks to the grassy terrain.
While the HP recovery is nice, though, it's not necessarily going to help even out the Pokemon count here. You have to start looking at how Kevin can go on the offense in this matchup. Iron Treads is certainly the bigger enemy here, as with grassy terrain active on the field, you can utilize Steel Roller. It's a steel type attack. It has a very high base power, but it only works when there's terrain on the field. It'll also remove the terrain by using that move. Now, you might look at that Zamazenta and think, well, he could appreciate some healing. You know, you're going to be taking damage over time thanks to the burn. However, I think in this scenario, you don't necessarily mind losing your terrain because it's going to stop your opponent's Pokemon from recovering as well. But it looks like Iron Treads is just content to keep waiting out this Trick Room.
Iron Tread's really just being a more of a warning on Tatsuomi's end, like, hey, eventually I'm going to click a hit here. Rillaboom hangs on with 1 HP, forcing the knockoff to go into that slot. Double target, finally Rillaboom goes down with what will be 1 turn of grassy terrain remaining, but what a crucial survival from the Rillaboom there. The hit from Body Press will bring Calyrex down low, but just because of that burn from so many turns ago, Gabby, it's really not doing enough damage.
That's a very common strategy when facing off against Zamazenta as well. You lock in the Ghost-type Terastallization on your Incineroar, so it'll really struggle to deal damage. You put a burn onto that Zamazenta, so it will struggle to deal damage to everything else on your team, and you kind of wait it out. That being said, though, with the juxtaposition of the Iron Treads right next to it, all you have to do this turn is double protect, Trick Room ends, and now you're able to go on the offense and really threaten some huge damage.
Tatsuomi doing exactly what you mentioned, the double protect, so he doesn't take any damage from Kevin's super powerful Pokemon on his side. That high horsepower goes into Iron Head to protect, as well as Incineroar's knockoff there. So you can see that's multiple turns in a row, or of the last times that Iron Treads has been on the field, that he has been double targeting that slot because it is such a massive threat.
It is, and now that the Twisted Dimensions have returned to normal as well, the Iron Treads is going to be one of the fastest Pokemon on the field. So if Kevin wants to avoid damage this turn, you can certainly protect for a turn, but that's not going to necessarily help you navigate the situation any better. I think you have to go on the offense. Just try and land as much damage into that Iron Treads as possible, and then also start setting things up so that your Choice Scarf Rillaboom in the back, or excuse me, Choice Scarf or Shifu in the back of your party can deal some big damage.
There's the high horsepower. Whoa. It's super effective, but it's not enough. He hangs on. Incineroar going first because of Trick Room. Double target means Iron Treads. All of those turns of positioning meant he didn't get any attacks off. The Life Orb being knocked off as well. Here's the Body Press, but because of the prior health recovery from the grassy terrain turns, Calyrex hangs through the hit.
And now Trick Room has ended. And now it's just the Zamazenta and the Chi-Yu standing on the field for Kevin, or for Tatsuomi. Kevin still has a full health Incineroar, but it is going to be taking super effective damage from the Chi-Yu's dark type attacks. And there, of course, is that Zamazenta as well still for Tatsuomi. That being said, though, the victory conditions for Kevin are starting to look good. All you have to do is take out that Chi-Yu, and the Zamazenta is just going to struggle to deal damage.
There's 3 minutes left here in this game 1. That is how long and back and forth this battle between these juniors has gone. Dark Pulse, though, into the Ghost Incineroar.
It's a one-hit.
For the one-hit KO. Choice Specs, Beads of Ruin, boosted damage from this Pokemon is just so difficult. The Terra Ghost that helped Kevin on turn 1 is costing him late in the game.
That Terra Ghost is not as safe to make if there is a Pokemon like Chi-Yu in the back. So that is an adjustment that Kevin will have to make going into Game 2 of this matchup. For now, you certainly can utilize your Urshifu to outspeed and knock out that Chi-Yu before it uses something like Dark Pulse to knock out your own Calyrex Ice Rider. But it's at such low health, there is no more grassy terrain recovery around. Another Body Press honestly should do it.
There is the Surging Strikes from Urshifu knocking out this Terra Ghost Chi-Yu, who did so much work for Tatsuomi here in Game 1, getting that huge one-hit KO into the Incineroar. 2 minutes left, but I don't know if it's going to last long enough with these 3 Pokemon remaining. Body Press into the Calyrex, takes it down. Finally, it felt like he's been clicking Body Press for literally 18 minutes, and he finally gets rewarded.
Well, technically, with 3 minutes remaining, your math is not far off there, Joe. But yes, we are down to the final 2 Pokemon here. Urshifu will continue to move first, and we will continue to see these Surging Strikes connect 3 times with the Zamazenta. It looks like it's going to take 1 more Surging Strikes to lock in that KO here. Let's see how it does.
Will Incineroar be able to help give Kevin the win? No! Urshifu can't take the Body Press, and Tatsuomi Shimanuki is going to win a long drawn-out Game 1.
bulky Pokemon indeed.
Absolutely.
That Zamazenta was incredible. It showed up on the field turn 1 and it didn't leave, even though it was burned, even though it was intimidated. That Pokemon just was not afraid of anything that Kevin had to bring into that battle. And the way that Tatsuomi almost tricked Kevin into terastallizing that Incineroar to handle the Zamazenta matchup better, only to bring the Chi-Yu was such an amazing call in that game.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that Kevin is going to be prepared for here in Game 2, to hold your horses a little bit with the Calyrex team on terastallizing. Don't Terra right away on turn 1, because you don't know what Tatsuomi's plan is going to be, especially after you have so much success of burning Zamazenta, really mitigating so much of the damage that Tatsuomi's restricted Pokemon can provide to your side of the field. I feel like maybe you saving your terastallization flexibility just like he did could be the key in Game 2.
It could be the key in Game 2 as well. I also think when we're talking about adjustments, you have to just look at how heavily board positioning came into play between both of these trainers. We saw that Rillaboom swap in twice for Tatsuomi to take a ground type attack for the Iron Treads. We also saw just how Kevin zoned in on that Iron Treads turn after turn in the Twisted Dimensions. I think that's something that Tatsuomi can continue to use to his advantage. Maybe showcase that Iron Treads early on, make sure that Kevin's thinking about it, and then use that to influence how the board is going to progress throughout Game 2.
I'm also really wondering, I don't believe it would have mattered, but I think that Rillaboom hang-on was so crucial because that knockoff would have targeted Zamazenta. Yes, it is a resisted attack, so it wouldn't do too much damage, but it's not like Zamazenta ended the game with too much hit points remaining anyway. So just Rillaboom, even if it didn't get many attacks off, just that health recovery, the fake-out pressure, the U-turn positioning is just so crucial for Tatsuomi in Game 1.
It was, and I really love how Rillaboom has become this support titan in the Regulation G. Honestly, it seems like Rillaboom is more useful than Incineroar in a format, which is something I never thought I would say coming into this weekend. Just because being able to provide flinch support, being able to pivot and deal some damage, and also to be able to heal up your partners is so huge. You see it mattering a lot more in matchups against Pokemon like Miraidon, where the terrain adds another level of strategy you need to manage throughout everything, but still, overall, a very powerful Pokemon, giving Zamazenta that support and really taking all those hits for the Iron Treads.
What a back and forth Game 1 that was, really going down to the wire and down to the timer almost because of how long the decisions took every turn. You had so many U-turn swaps and many other decisions that they made on the way. So many double protects as well. Remember, we went through 2 full Twisted Dimensions. That hardly ever happens in VGC.
It does, and I also noticed as well that Kevin was doing a fantastic job throughout that matchup of managing when he needed to use Trick Room to the advantage of the Calyrex Ice Rider, and when he needed to double protect to stall out his own Trick Room so that he can enable the other Pokemon on his team. It just shows how comfortable he is with this restricted Pokemon, which makes sense. He was on the stage at New Orleans and he was able to win thanks to the help of Calyrex Ice Rider.
And this is not the first time Kevin Hahn has had his back against the wall here in Honolulu. Kevin started Swiss 1 and 2 and was very stressed, but his brother Chris gave him the confidence he needed to continue on through the day, winning those next 5 rounds, winning his top cut matches 2-0 as we mentioned earlier. So if Kevin is of any of the juniors trainers here in Honolulu, Kevin's certainly one of them that can make a comeback.
For sure, and also all of that experience as well, winning multiple regionals titles, multiple international titles. Tatsuomi, this is really his breakout performance at a competition. He got top 4 at the Japan Championship Series this year, but really prior to that, he had no other accomplishments, just because I think there's really only a couple of opportunities that people from that region have. But still, this could be his opportunity to write his name in the stars along with all of our other world champions this weekend, as we're going to go ahead and jump into game number 2.
Tatsuomi 1 game away from becoming the juniors division world champion here in Honolulu, but Kevin Hahn, of course, might have something to say about that. It will be Incineroar and Calyrex Ice Rider as the lead for Kevin in game 2, compared to Zamazenta Chi-Yu for Tatsuomi.
A big adjustment here from Tatsuomi as the presence of the Chi-Yu threatens away the Ghost-type terrestrialization on that Incineroar, and it also threatens huge damage onto the Calyrex Ice Rider. A lot of times, Calyrex Ice Rider will terrestrialize into a Fire-type in this position just so you don't take super effective damage from this Pokemon, or you even get resisted damage depending on what attack the opponent picks. I would not be surprised to see Kevin go for that this turn here. You could try and set up Trick Room again early, but I think you have to prioritize getting another burn down onto that Zamazenta, and then you need to start doing damage a bit more aggressively.
And it's a tough decision for Tatsuomi, as you mentioned, the fake out potential into Zamazenta or the Will-O-Wisp, which landed very early on in game one and just hurt so much damage. But he's going to listen here and adjusting instead of Incineroar terrestrializing in game one. We're going to go with the horse who brung us, and Calyrex Terra Fire on this turn would resist a potential heat wave going into that slot. Fake out from Incineroar stops Zamazenta's attack on the turn thanks to that flinch, but it's a Dark Pulse into the still Dark-type Incineroar, going to take that way better here in game two. Now Trick Room is up, Calyrex fully healthy, and Incineroar still with a lot of HP.
With a lot of HP and a lot of time on the field to land another burn against that Zamazenta, to Parting Shot out to weaken the attack or the special attack of Tatsuomi's Pokemon. There are plenty of options that he did not have in the previous game thanks to the Fire-type terrestrialization, and again, just how these Pokemon are going to struggle to do damage as a result.
GU, because of that Choice Specs held item, is forced essentially to swap out on this turn to reset the attack it wants to click later. And of course, Rillaboom is one of the best Pokemon you could choose to swap in. Besides the Glitch, there's no Wide Guard. Zamazenta didn't click the Wide Guard, and Rillaboom takes the whole brunt of that hit. That's going to be a one-hit KO and an attack boost for Calyrex.
Learning from game one where that Rillaboom swapped in to take high horsepower, that Chi-Yu got off the field, Rillaboom knocked out, and now Zamazenta burned alongside of it.
Insult to injury or burn as well. 2 games in a row that Will-O-Wisp has connected. The body press is still super effective into the Dark-type Incineroar, so it's more than enough for the KO. They do trade 2 very strong Pokemon, but I would definitely say Kevin Hahn comes out on top. One, Zamazenta's damage hurt because of the burn, and Calyrex got the attack boost.
Calyrex got the attack boost. Zamazenta is going to be the slowest Pokemon on the field, but hey, that Iron Treads is still here. Tatsuomi opting to bring the same 4 Pokemon into this matchup that we saw from him in game number 1. Going back to game number 1, we saw this Iron Treads go for Protect in this situation just to see what Kevin will lock into. Again, we saw Kevin very consistently target down that slot with a high horsepower. Rillaboom's no longer there to take those attacks, so even if your opponent protects this turn, you're eventually going to land it.
Right, there's essentially no need to worry about the Wide Guard mind games for Glacial Lance when you have 2 Steel types on the field that don't want to take a high horsepower, and a Fire type Chi-Yu in the back that wouldn't want to swap into it either. So Kevin smartly clicking the Glacial, or the high horsepower, excuse me. Thunderbolt will go into the Protect and wouldn't hit Iron Treads anyway in case he hit that slot, but there are 2 turns of Trick Room left for Kevin.
There are 2 turns of Trick Room and 3 turns of Grassy Terrain, which means that Zamazenta will have a couple more turns to not necessarily keep that burn damage around. That all being said, though, Kevin is in the driver's seat for this matchup as he can go on the offense. One thing I do want to call out here is the fact that getting that Glacial Lance to connect with that Rillaboom a couple turns ago was so important for him because of the risk of Wide Guard on that Zamazenta.
It's Terra Bug Iron Treads. We are not making it up, everybody. One of the bug typing, one of the most underrepresented types in all of Pokemon, will help the Iron Treads take that high horsepower, resisting it. But the critical hit Thunderbolt means Iron Treads can't survive the turn, and Zamazenta's all by himself on the battlefield right now. That could have been an amazing Terra for Tatsuomi, but instead, it's going to result in a KO.
Zamazenta doing its best to get a little bit of damage thanks to body press down onto the opposing Calyrex Ice Rider. Tatsuomi is now down to his final 2 Pokemon. Chi-Yu, who cannot protect thanks to the Choice Specs item that it's holding, and that Zamazenta. This is also going to be the final turn of Trick Room. So while this Calyrex Ice Rider still needs to click high horsepower to be safe, it is able to land that against the Chi-Yu and pick up that KO.
There's the one-hit KO into Chi-Yu, so it's Calyrex's second knockout of the game, getting another attack boost. And here's the booster energy, aided, I should say, Thunderbolt into Zamazenta, doing over half. That's the other important thing from that turn before, Gabby, is that the booster energy onto Raging Bolt's special attack meant that Thunderbolt does even more damage, meaning the critical hit is even stronger.
It is, and with just Zamazenta remaining on the field for Tatsuomi, I think it's time we turn our eyes towards a game number 3 here in the Juniors Finals at the World Championships.
Kevin Han has forced a final and decisive game 3 against his junior opponent, Tatsuomi Shimanuki. The winner of this match is going to leave Honolulu as the Junior Division World Champion. And I think Tatsuomi, I think we would agree, Gabby, those 4 Pokemon seem to be the core 4 to bring, but that turn 1 was just so great from Kevin.
It was an incredible adjustment from Kevin. Again, recognizing that the Ghost-type Terastallization on that Incineroar was punished by the presence of the Chi-Yu. And when your opponent leads Chi-Yu and you know that it's there, that gives you all the confidence you need to lock in the Fire-type Terastallization on that Calyrex Ice Rider. That was also an amazing play from Kevin here, where he did go for Glacial Lance despite the presence of a wide guard on the Zamazenta, correctly predicting that his opponent wouldn't go for it.
I love to see the emotion. I love to see the passion. These are the trainers that are the future of the competitive Pokemon circuit. Seeing how passionate they are now makes us so happy to see how much they're going to grow as trainers. This is one of the toughest matches they'll face in their short lives so far, but it's going to help them progress to even better players once they make it to the Masters Division.
That being said, though, there's still only one battle separating both of these trainers from the title of Junior World Champion, and we spent a little bit there talking about how Kevin adjusted his game plan between games 1 and 2. Let's take a moment to talk about how Tatsuomi could potentially adjust his game plan going into this game number 3. When you think about how that first game played out, it was really the positioning between the Rillaboom and the Iron Treads that gave him the time he needed to get through Trick Room and ultimately win the game. We saw Kevin adapt to that in game number 2, but to me that means in game number 3 you can also make an adaptation. You know, maybe you assume that your opponent knows there's the Iron Treads on the field, there's a possibility for high horsepower, I'll make that switch, and then go ahead and turn that against it.
Yeah, I think Tatsuomi is in a really tough spot mentally. Let's not say for the Pokemon, obviously there's so many difficult decisions you have to make every single turn. Do I swap? Do I protect? Can I stop Trick Room from going up? Can I punish Terrafire Calyrex a little bit better than I did in game 2? But you only have access to these 6 Pokemon that brought you this far. So, you're going to have to worry, what are those options to stop the Trick Room from Terrafire Calyrex?
There aren't that many options, unfortunately. You can try and make an incredible prediction and get damage down into that slot. If you're able to catch a Fire-type Terastallization with a high horsepower, that could be one out. But instead, we're seeing a very similar lead here from Tatsuomi in game number 3.
This is for all the marbles, everybody. Game 3, Kevin Han, Tatsuomi Shimanuki. Tatsuomi with Chi-Yu Zamazenta. They've swapped sides, but it's the same lead. And then Urshifu Rapid Strike next to Calyrex Ice Rider. That Urshifu has the Choice Scarf. It's faster than Chi-Yu.
It's faster than Chi-Yu, and while we know that Chi-Yu can Terastallize to survive the hit from the Urshifu, that is a big commitment for Tatsuomi to make in turn 1 of game 3 here. If he has that Iron Tread still in the back of his party, he might want to save Terastallization for that Bug type. On the other side of the field, Kevin really can comfortably go for that fire-type terrestrialization once again on the Calyrex, knowing that the Chi-Yu has already been revealed.
But Zamazenta has to feel at least comfortable in some capacity this turn, since Incineroar is not here to ruin its day and burn it with Will-O-Wisp. It's potentially in the back. You have to be prepared for that, but it is not on the field on turn 1, so you can't burn these body presses into the other side. Kevin Hunt terrestrializing Urshifu Rapid Strike, getting additional damage from those water attacks, the surging strikes. They're already massive, and they're going to be even bigger in this game. There's no protects. You can't protect anyway in front of GU, or with GU. That's only a 2-hit KO. You don't even need the third surging strike.
A huge momentum shift for Kevin as he's able to secure a knockout on the first move of the first turn of this game 3.
And there's the body press. That does some pretty solid damage into your Urshifu. Definitely cannot take another one. Here's the Glacial Lance that is ineffective thanks to Zamazenta's steel typing. So you do lose your Chi-Yu, but you do get a lot of damage onto the Urshifu, and Trick Room is not set up.
And you also cover for the potential Rillaboom switch in that turn. Instead, Chi-Yu was just knocked out, which means we do get the Rillaboom here now. Urshifu, very threatened by this Pokemon. It is more than within a Grassy Glide knockout range. So if Kevin wants to save that Urshifu for later on in this game, again, to put more pressure down onto the Zamazenta, which Tatsuomi has shown us time and time again is very comfortable staying on the field, you have to switch that Pokemon out. Without Chi-Yu around, though, this seems like a great opportunity for Incineroar to take the field.
Right, exactly. One, because Incineroar would love to just switch in general in front of the grass type on Rillaboom on the other end. But of course, because Urshifu's locked into the Choice Scarf Surging Strikes, it would take a tough spot. But instead, he's going to use Surging Strikes with Urshifu. Knows that potentially this Rapid Strike Pokemon is not long for the rest of this match. So let me get some more critical hit damage off on the field. Bring Zamazenta down to under half of its HP remaining. So the body press will knock out Urshifu. He's done its job. He's done, essentially 1.5 times the HP bars of Tatsuomi's Pokemon. So Urshifu has put in so much work in game 3. But it's the U-turn from Rillaboom. The real question is, did Calyrex go for the Stomping Tantrum into Zamazenta?
We'll have to wait just a little bit longer to get that information, but we do get the reveal of Tatsuomi's final Pokemon, and once again, it is the Iron Treads taking the field.
It's Trick Room instead of the attack, so now on the second turn of the game, Kevin is able to twist those dimensions, and you have a free switch into either the Incineroar or whatever the fourth Pokemon in the back will be for Kevin.
I love this positioning from Kevin there as well. One thing that Tatsuomi could have done in that previous turn is target down the Calyrex Ice Rider with both an attack from that Zamazenta and a Wood Hammer from that Rillaboom to get very close, if not knock it out outright. But because we saw Kevin commit to that Trick Room, recognizing that he might lose a Pokemon that turn, as long as Trick Room is there for a Raging Bolt, or a Raging Bolt can come in while the Urshifu is still around, that is still a very favorable board position for him, as the Calyrex will still be able to attack first, and the Raging Bolt should underspeed the Zamazenta as well.
Yeah, the Zamazenta already under half HP, so it's in a really critical position for Tatsuomi. You know you can get some recovery every turn with the Protect, as grassy terrain is here. It'll give you a little bit of HP at the end of each turn. Double Protect from Kevin here on the turn. We've actually seen that now multiple times, that as he sets up his own Trick Room, he will then protect the following turn. Iron Treads goes for the Protect as well to keep itself safe. Body Press doesn't hit into the Raging Bolt, so no damage from anybody, only health recovery.
And Kevin, again, anticipating the Protect on that Iron Treads to ensure that Zamazenta can't find a knockout in this turn. Now you can fairly safely target into the Iron Treads with your Pokemon. You do still have to worry about a Wide Guard, and you do have to worry about the Rillaboom switching in for that Iron Treads as well. So there's a bit of a mind game here as to what attack Kevin uses with that Calyrex. But still, none of these Pokemon are necessarily worried about being knocked out this turn. And as you can see, Calyrex actually switching out to keep itself safe. So Kevin just going on the offense with the Raging Bolt.
Kevin going to reveal his fourth and final Pokemon in Game 3, being the Incineroar. Let's see if Tatsuomi was prepared for this situation. These Trick Room turns are so tricky to get through when you're not the Pokemon or the trainer that takes advantage of it. Terra Bug Iron Treads yet again in Game 3. Last time it was double targeted, so that's why it wasn't able to hang on, but he did get crit by a Booster Energy Thunderbolt from Raging Bolt. This time it goes towards the Zamazenta, and Tatsuomi has lost his restricted Pokemon in Game 3. It's this, just the Iron Treads. Steel Roller with the grassy terrain into a Fire type. It does hardly anything.
It does hardly anything, and it will also tear up the grassy terrain on the field. Rillaboom will be back out shortly to reset that terrain and give Iron Treads access to Steel Roller once again, but you really wanted to land that attack into the Calyrex Ice Rider, which is why you Terrastalize, so you can take those hits. That all being said, though, with 2 turns of Trick Room remaining, Tatsuomi is on the back foot. You have access to fake out this turn. You can go ahead and maybe protect your Iron Treads for one of these turns, or fake out and protect to get through both turns. But you have to find your way through Trick Room in order to keep an advantage and keep yourself in the game for that World Champion title.
Incineroar does not have a fire attack. There is no Flare Blitz because of Will-O-Wisp being in that 4th slot. So both of these, the grass and bug types on the field right now, are not threatened by super effective damage. Draco Meteor lands into Iron Treads. It's going to be more than enough for the KO, and Tatsuomi losing his Terrastalized Pokemon. It's just Rillaboom versus the world.
Rillaboom does have that grassy terrain to help keep its health higher and also boost the damage of its grass type attacks. But with a Calyrex Ice Rider waiting in the wings, will it have enough in the tank to take all 3 of these KOs?
That's the forfeit, and Kevin Hahn throughout the season has proved he's the best junior in the world. EUIC champion, NAIC champion, and now world champion in the juniors division for the Pokemon video game.
With an excellent piloting of that Calyrex Ice Rider team, being able to anticipate his opponent's adjustments throughout all 3 of those incredibly long games. Kevin has shown us just why he is one of the most awarded junior champions in Pokemon video game history.